Unexpected heroism. Waitress reveals amazing act after billionaire's shocking collapse at Gala. Sarah wiped down the counter at Rosie's diner for the 100th time that day. Her eyes glazed over from exhaustion. The fluorescent lights flickered above her, casting harsh shadows that mirrored her own uncertainty. With every coffee refill and order of chicken fried steak, she felt the weight of her family's struggles press down on her, as if she were lifting the burden of their dreams alone. Her paycheck barely supported her younger siblings' needs, let alone her single mother's mounting bills. The diner might as well have been a prison. The smell of grease mixed with despair hung heavily in the air. She glanced at the time. Just a few more hours before the day's work was done. But no moment was truly ever finished when you were fighting for your family. The nagging fear of not being enough gnawed at her. Was this all there was for someone like her? A waitress forever, stuck in a cycle of giving without receiving? But she pressed on, determined to rise from the ashes of her reality. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket, a last-minute invitation to serve at a charity gala held in a posh hotel. Sarah hesitated. The thought of mingling with the elite made her stomach churn. What do I have to offer them? She thought, her heart racing as her mind flooded with insecurities. The glittering event seemed worlds away from the greasy diner where she poured coffee for tired truckers. But she couldn't ignore the opportunity. The extra cash could mean new shoes for her little brother or a released hold on her mother's daily stress. Before she could think twice, she pulled on her oversized black dress. It was scratchy, a remnant of better days. Her mother had once worn it to a holiday party. At the gala, the glitz dazzled her senses. Laughter soared through crystal chandeliers, and women swirled in elegant gowns. She was out of her depth, a fish in an ocean of sharks. Taking deep breaths, she set her jaw, reminding herself of her purpose: family first. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she began to serve drinks, a loud thud erupted. Gasps rippled through the crowd as a prominent billionaire collapsed to the ground. Panic erupted. Guests stumbled back, their elegant conversations dissolving into chaos. Sarah felt a heat rising in her chest. Should she move? Would it be inappropriate for a mere waitress to intervene? Her instincts screamed at her to act. Pushing through the sea of astonished faces, she knelt beside the billionaire, heart pounding and mind racing. Was she capable? Unease gripped her as she applied pressure to his chest, performing a role she'd only seen in movies. But determination pushed through her fear, igniting a flame of courage she never knew existed. As emergency services rushed in, the room's atmosphere shifted into whispers and doubt. Who was she to save a life? The collective gaze of the elite, once dazzled by the opulence around them, now scrutinized Sarah with narrowed eyes. Yet as she looked at the unmoving face of the billionaire, a new fear took root. Would this act redefine her, or merely reinforce the divide? Was she ready for the consequences of her actions? In that moment, she grappled with an unrelenting question, a tempest of internal conflict swirling within her. Was her worth intertwined with a title that dismissed her, or did her bravery transcend the layers of status and class in that room? And just as she thought the tension couldn't rise higher, the billionaire's eyes flickered open, a silent reckoning forming in their depths. What would her life look like next? And how far would she have to go to claim her place in this daunting new reality? What secrets about her family lay buried that could alter the very foundation of her struggle? The room fell into an uneasy stillness as the billionaire blinked, his gaze wildly searching for clarity. Sarah felt a jolt of adrenaline coursing through her veins, a sense of accomplishment mixed with the weight of uncertainty. What happens next? People began to murmur and move closer, curiosity mingling with concern. Did they see her as a hero, or just a servant who stumbled into a moment of chaos? The scrutiny hung in the air, almost suffocating. How did you know what to do? The billionaire's voice was hoarse, but in that moment, it echoed loudly in Sarah's mind. She found herself at a crossroads. Did she embrace the accidental heroism or shrink back into the shadows, drowning in self-doubt once more? Just instincts, she replied, the words tumbling out before she could filter them. Instincts. That was all they were, right? Years spent caring for her siblings, making quick decisions in moments of stress. Was her life of hardship equipping her with skills she hadn't recognized until now? As the paramedics wheeled the man away, Sarah felt a flicker of hope ignite inside her. Her shift had been mundane, almost forgettable, but now her actions were imprinted on the minds of the gala guests. It was a chance for her to redefine herself, to write a new narrative. The billionaire, as he was being attended to, locked eyes with her for a fleeting second, an acknowledgement that swept away the divide between them and made her feel a connection that shook her core. An invitation into a world that had left her feeling so unworthy just moments before. The shift in energy was palpable. The whispers gathered in intensity, spiraling around her. Who is she? Where did she come from? What does she want? Seizing the moment, Sarah took a breath and decided she would no longer let fear dictate her path. As the gala resumed, she began to serve again, this time holding her head a touch higher, brushing aside the nerves threatening to consume her. With every drink refilled and every smile exchanged, she scooped whispers of the elite into her memory. Their stories, their aspirations, intertwined with her own growing ambition. Could there be room for someone like her in their world? Her motivation shifted. It was no longer just about survival, it was about potential. Each encounter with the guests could be a stepping stone, a connection that might open doors. The billion-dollar deals, shiny cars, and tailored suits began to blend into a mosaic of opportunities, each representing a life different from her own. Sarah's reflections were abruptly interrupted by a woman in a striking red ball gown. "You were incredible tonight," she said, her voice smooth and dripping with an unfamiliar warmth. "We need someone with your courage." Suddenly, the realization hit. Bravery could transcend status, shattered glass ceilings, and redefine identities. The woman was part of an organization supporting young women through mentorship, and Sarah was intrigued. What if she could forge a new path not just for herself but also for her siblings? As her pulse quickened with excitement, the woman handed her a business card. "Let us meet. You have a gift." Sarah's heart raced. Was she truly on the brink of something more, something transformative? But just then, another thought darkened her excitement. What if her family needed her more than ever? How could she balance their needs with this newfound possibility, this tantalizing glimpse into a different existence? As the gala faded into the background and the night wore on, she left with questions weighing heavily on her mind. This encounter had lit a fire, but would she have the courage to pursue it? What sacrifices lay ahead in that pursuit? And ultimately, would they be worth it? Her vision of a different life flickered at the edge of her mind, but the cracks in her reality still loomed large. What would she choose in this moment of profound uncertainty? The night air felt electric as Sarah stepped outside, the sounds of laughter and music dimming behind her, fading into an echo of what had just transpired. There she stood, clutching the sleek business card like a lifeline, her heart pounding with an intoxicating mix of fear and exhilaration. The gravity of her dual existence weighed upon her. How could she leap into this promising opportunity while tethered to the needs of her family? Instinctively, her thoughts returned to her siblings Richard and Lila, who were dependent on her more than she cared to admit. The late-night whispers of apprehension about bills, the hurried glances exchanged when groceries ran low, loomed large in her mind. They deserved stability, yet that stability kept her shackled to a life she longed to escape. The mentorship opportunity stood before her as a beacon, but what price would it extract from her heart? As she walked to the nearby subway station, her mind flickered back to the billionaire's gaze, both grateful and piercing. He had seen her potential, a glimpse of something unpolished yet vital. It was one thing to be perceived as staff. It was another entirely to be acknowledged as someone who could influence change. That moment of connection tugged at her, urging her to confront her fears rather than suppress them. On the train, crowded and stifling, she felt the familiar pulse of the city, but this time, it felt different. Each stop had the potential to lead somewhere new. She watched the people board and disembark, intuitively sensing their stories, their aspirations, and where they were headed. It piqued her curiosity. Who among them had faced demons far darker than hers? What paths had they forged in search of more? The train screeched to a halt, dragging her back to her reality. The prospect of mentorship gnawed at her. What if it changed everything? Would Richard and Lila understand? Would she still be able to fulfill her role as their protector while exploring ambitions that felt dangerously extravagant? The wonder of potential flickered alongside her fears, a troubling juxtaposition. Once home, shadows loomed in the corners of the modest apartment. Lila was already asleep, while Richard sat hunched over a pile of college applications, his brow creased in worry. "Hey, Sarah," he said as she entered, a hint of relief washing over his face. "You're home. How was work?" She hesitated. It was eventful. The weight of her late-night revelations simmered beneath the surface. But how could she burden him with her own dreams when he was clinging to his own uncertain future? As Sarah poured the last of the orange juice into 2 glasses, she wondered if vulnerability was the key to connection. Richard deserved an authentic glimpse into her inner world, but would that derail his focus? The dance between family duty and personal desire felt precariously intricate. In the morning, a decision awaited her. The meeting with the woman in red. That was just hours away, and she felt its implications, the nerve-wracking clarion call of potential crashing into the pragmatic realities of family life. What if she chose to attend the meeting and found herself irrevocably changed? What face would she show her siblings then? The truth loomed like an unstoppable force. The time had come to face her fears and perhaps shake the foundations of their lives. The potential for greatness sparkled like a mirage. Could she step toward it without leaving her family behind? As she lay in bed, her thoughts spiraled, oscillating between excitement and trepidation. Would her choice be the catalyst for both her development and her family's future? Or would the fear of abandonment drown out everything she hoped to achieve? With dawn rapidly approaching, certainty slipped away, replaced by a growing sense of urgency. Tomorrow was not just another day. It would be a pivot point, a crossroad demanding resolution. Time pressed on her like a weight, and with that pressure came an undeniable clarity. There had to be a way to embrace both possibilities, but how? The morning sun struggled to penetrate the heavy clouds, casting a muted light over Sarah's room as she woke, the specter of decision looming larger than ever. The business card remained tucked safely in her pocket, a constant reminder of the possibility that awaited her. Today, it would either be a first step into newfound purpose or a sealing of her fate in the confines of the familiar. As Sarah prepared for the meeting, each mundane action a splash of water on her face, a simple breakfast feel like a ritual of transformation. She scrutinized her reflection, searching for the determination that seemed so elusive. Could she let go of every doubt? When she looked at herself, she saw the person trapped beneath layers of obligation, but she also caught glimpses of the woman she aspired to be. Downstairs, Richard's anxious tapping on the keyboard reverberated in the silence. "What are you going to do today?" he asked without looking up, his voice cautious. It was a straightforward question, but it sent a charge of panic crawling up Sarah's spine. Was it fair to burden him with her ambitions? "Just errands," she answered, the urge to share welling up muffled by uncertainty. "Right," he said, the inherent pride mixing with apprehension in his voice. "I know how busy that can be." She refrained from correcting him. The errands were less about unloading groceries and more about unearthing her own desires. But vulnerabilities floated beneath the surface. What if her errands led her away from him? Away from their shared struggle? The subway swayed beneath her as she rode towards the meeting, each click of the tracks tapping rhythmically against her intentions. She could feel the city's heartbeat throbbing with potential, with each stop igniting a flicker of hope. Yet doubt nagged at her insidiously, that this opportunity was not solely for her growth, that it might signal an irrevocable loss instead. Emerging from the underground, The contrast of towering glass structures against the sky was both motivating and intimidating. The venue loomed ahead, and as Sarah stepped forward, a swell of fear twisted in her stomach. She hesitated, the cool metal of the card pressing against her skin. Was this the moment to show her true self, or would she dissolve back into the shadows from which she wished to emerge? Inside, opulence met her senses like a tidal wave. The distant sound of conversations created a vibrant tapestry of ambition and uncertainty. Here, she was no longer just a waitress. She was a future that could be influenced by the decisions she made today. Then she spotted her, the woman in red, vivid amidst the gray suits and understated neutrals. As she approached, every instinct called for retreat. But she pressed on, steeling herself against the pull of retreat. Sarah, the woman greeted, her voice rich with authority, yet warm. You've arrived. Thank you for this opportunity, Sarah replied, feigning confidence in her tone. But no sooner did the words leave her lips than she felt a flood of sincerity wash over her. Tell me about you, Sarah. What drives you? The question unexpectedly ignited a spark. This was her moment, a chance to voice the dreams that had curled tightly within her heart. In that charged instant, she could sense the potential for liberation. Beneath the surface of her nerves, her true convictions began to bubble up. She spoke of her family, but also of her hunger for something greater, a chance to not just escape, but to uplift them all. As her words poured forth, she realized she didn't need to choose between her ambitions and family. They could be woven together. Then let us explore what that future looks like, the woman in red said, a hint of challenge in her tone. It hit her then, the realization that accepting this opportunity didn't mean abandoning her family. Instead, it could serve as a bridge. As they delved into the details of the mentorship program, Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her feet, forging a path where once there had only been uncertainty. She was ready to confront both her greatest ambitions and the complexities of her loyalty to Richard and Lila. But as the conversation deepened, it became clear that this wasn't merely a discussion of potential. There were expectations involved. What responsibilities would she now face? What sacrifices might be demanded? With each question posed by the woman in red, a new layer of tension unfurled. Did Sarah have what it took to reshape her life while keeping her family intact? And as the meeting came to a close, her heart raced with both exhilaration and fear. The true test was yet to come, confronting her siblings with the news of this radical change and all it might entail. Would they understand, or would they see her ambition as betrayal? The finality of that thought echoed in her waking mind as she stepped away from the table. The moment was just the beginning, a catalyst nudging her destiny into uncertain territories. Fear twisted in her stomach again, but alongside it, an undeniable thrill started to take root. The woman in red had given her more than a mere opportunity. She had ignited a fire within that as Sarah turned to leave, recalling her family's faces and the weight of her choices. A singular question emerged, a question that could redefine everything she'd just learned. Could she forge a new identity without losing the old? Or was she setting herself up for an inevitable clash? The meeting felt like a film reel that had reached its climax. A rush of adrenaline mixed with uncertainty propelling Sarah into the next scene of her life. As the bewildering discussions of her potential swirled in her mind, she stepped back out into the bustling city. But this time, the chaos around her ignited a steely resolve within. She was not just an onlooker. She was an active participant in her own narrative. Her footsteps echoed down the polished streets, where every face seemed to beam with confidence and purpose. Yet Sarah was gripped by a heavy weight. The decision to take on this mentorship loomed over her like a specter. Family loyalty warred with individual ambition, and each pulse of her heart echoed the growing tension within. What if they saw her ambition as a stepping stone away from them? What if it strained the bonds that had carried them through life's trials? Determined, she navigated the crowd with a focused intent, heading home where Richard and Lila awaited. Each step felt heavier, and the familiar landscape blurred as her thoughts raced ahead, her siblings' expressions and responses, the weight of her choices pressing down like a physical force. Once inside her small apartment, Sarah found her brother seated at the dining table, engrossed in spreadsheets on his laptop. The mess dishes balanced precariously. An unmade bed peeking through the open door was stark against the bittersweet comfort of home. She swallowed hard. She had to summon the courage she felt earlier that day. "Richard," she began, her voice shaking slightly. He looked up, eyes questioning, and she took a breath to steady herself. "I got this opportunity. A mentorship program that could change my life, our life." The pause hung thick in the air, and she braced for the whirlwind of emotions that followed. Richard leaned forward, the confusion palpable on his face. "What does that mean for us? For Lila? We're in this together, Sarah. You know that." The familiar warmth of family wrapped around her. Yet the very nature of their togetherness felt constricting. "I know, but I can't keep waiting for my turn to step into the light. This might allow us to finally have what we've all wanted to have more." His expression shifted, revealing layers of concern. More could mean leaving us. It was an accusation draped in the deepest anxiety of losing her to ambition. "I want to leave you behind." Her own voice surprised her with its steadiness. "This is about building a future together, not apart." She watched as his skepticism cracked slightly, the walls of unease beginning to crumble. "What's next?" he asked, his brow furrowing as the logistical considerations settled against the emotional turmoil. With adrenaline pumping, she outlined her plans: intensive workshops, networking events, and the promise of mentorship that could elevate their lives. What she didn't mention was the grueling demands that were sure to arise and how she would need to carve out time between her obligations to him and Lila. Rachel joined them then, drawn by the sound of their conversation. The slight discomfort on her face gave way to interest as Sarah spoke, rapid fire, about the possibilities ahead. With each word, Sarah's confidence grew, filling the room with a renewed sense of ambition. But beneath the enthusiasm was a pulsating thread of guilt that twisted in her stomach. Behind the excitement about her future lay the quiet dread of disappointing them. "We're proud of you, Sarah," Rachel finally said, her voice soft but firm. "Just don't forget us in the midst of it all. The last thing we need is more distance." "But what if I'm only beginning to figure out who I am?" Sarah challenged, searching for understanding in their expressions. "If I can discover that part of me, I can help us grow." But the question reverberated in the air and remained unaddressed. Would acceptance come at the cost of separation or strain her relationships? The uncertainty hovered over her as she sensed her dreams creeping into their shared space, and perhaps it was inevitable they would confront the potential for. Changed as emotions swirled and the conversations morphed into a delicate negotiation of feelings. Sarah wrestled with newfound clarity amid the chaos. It wasn't just her ambitions on the line. It was the entire foundation of her family. With the path ahead becoming clearer, a new question rose within her, sharp and unwelcome. Was she prepared to face the real challenge, the possibility that this journey could irrevocably alter her family dynamics? As the evening wore on, Sarah's thoughts buzzed, leading her to a stark realization. In embarking on this path, she would not only transform herself but would also need to test the strength of her connections to Richard and Lila. They had collectively weathered storms. Now they were on the brink of a daunting new chapter. Was this the moment she would rise as the architect of her own story, or would she crumble under the weight of expectation? Sarah's mind raced, but determination cloaked her uncertainty as she settled into her evening routine. The din of the bustling city, with its penetrating sounds of cars honking and laughter spilling out from open cafes, faded into the background. Instead, the blurry images of Richard and Lila occupied every corner of her thoughts like elusive shadows that both inspired her and weighed her down. In an attempt to regain her composure, she pulled out her laptop and began researching the mentorship program in earnest. There was an energy in her fingertips, a fervor that grounded her ambitions as she navigated the webpage filled with stories of success. Yet, as she read about the rigorous expectations, a lump formed in her throat. Would she be strong enough for this? Each success story seemed to underscore the sacrifices made along the way, and the fear of inadequacy poked at her steadily. Would her family's sacrifices become her own path? But her resolve pulsated stronger than fear. She felt the thrill of risk under her skin. The bittersweet tingle of potential filled the air. As she planned her first actions, reaching out to mentors, setting goals for networking, she caught a glimpse of herself in the window. This was someone who had always tilted toward the safe side of life. The mere thought of stepping outside that comfort zone sent tremors through her core. Was that really who she was? Thunder shook the stillness of her living room, urging a reflection on the tempest brewing inside her heart. Guilt intertwined with her ambition, reminding her of responsibilities yet to be fulfilled. She pictured Richard, hunched over at the table, the flickering light of the laptop illuminating his worry. "I can't abandon them," she whispered to herself, exhaustion creeping into her voice. But what about not stepping into the brightly illuminated promise that beckoned her? With a shaky breath, she opened a blank document and began to jot down her fears and aspirations, her personal manifesto. Each line became a step towards clarity, a declaration of intent. "I will initiate conversations about support," it read, underscoring her commitment to keeping her family anchored while reaching for her dreams. This was a complex ballet of balance, she realized. The act of lifting herself wouldn't mean she had to pull away. It could mean inviting them on the journey. As she continued her writing, the doubt metamorphosed into a comfort zone she was eager to expand. Yet there remained an edge of trepidation. Her phone buzzed, disrupting her thoughts. Richard. The weight of his anticipation felt almost tangible. She picked up, and the weight dissolved into casual conversation. Yet threads of concern weaved between their words. As she spoke, clarity bloomed. This was not just her venture, but one that involved the people she loved most. Their conversation turned into strategic brainstorming. What would each of them need from her journey? To keep her ambition from becoming a rift, she needed to define shared goals. They discussed how they could support each other, how she could bring them along in her growth rather than stepping away. Sarah hung up feeling a renewed sense of purpose. The buzzing cloud of anxiety still lingered outside her comfort zone, but now it seemed less daunting. As she prepared for bed, she contemplated the next day, the series of meetings, her intent to express her needs, and how to adjust her stride to include Richard and Lila. A smile broke across her lips. The future looked more inviting than she had imagined. But then, as she settled into her sheets, the question came rushing back, a chill in the air. Was she really equipped to handle the transformation both personally and as an anchor for her family? Or would the tides of ambition drown her in responsibilities? In the hours that passed, sleep eluded her, leaving her wide awake, contemplating that question. The fabric of her family bond was changing, and she couldn't shake the sense that an impending storm awaited her at dawn, a confrontation that would test their unity and redefine what they meant to each other. What would that confrontation unveil? And would it strengthen their ties, or unravel the delicate threads binding them together? Morning light spilled through the cracks in the curtains, casting streaks of gold across Sarah's room as she wrestled with the unanswered questions that hung heavily in the air. Today felt monumental, a precipice teetering between the familiar and the unknown. As she pulled herself from bed, her reflection in the mirror demanded her attention. Eyes wide with both resolve and fear, she contemplated the changes ahead. With coffee boiling atop the stove, she mentally rehearsed the dialogues for her meetings. Each scenario unfolded in her mind like a fractal pattern, complex and infinitely expanding. Could she really navigate the intricate balance of ambition and familial duty they had outlined together? Each sip brought bittersweet clarity, fueling the courage she needed but battled against that haunting sense of inadequacy. Dressed and slightly more composed, she stepped out into a world that seemed to throng with possibility. The streets hummed with purpose, and she felt momentarily buoyed by the momentum of others pursuing their own agendas. But the moment was short-lived. Her phone buzzed messages from Richard and Lila, echoes of their concerns that pulled her back into trepidation. As she navigated the crowded sidewalks, thoughts of how her family would react to her decisions filled her mind. She needed to articulate her ambitions while also honoring the sacrifices they had made for her. The weight of so many expectations wrapped around her like a heavy cloak, leaving her momentarily breathless. Her first meeting loomed ahead at a local cafe, where she would meet an established mentor, The woman had a reputation for both her success and her straightforward nature. Sarah's heart raced as she sat down, the air thick with unsaid hopes. "So why are you pursuing this program?" Her mentor began, her tone cutting through Sarah's thoughts like a knife. "It was the question she'd prepared for. Yet words faltered as her mind swirled with self-doubt. "I hope to grow, to achieve something beyond what I thought was possible," she stammered, but quickly shifted gears. "I want to build a future that honors my family, too." The admission hung in the air, and for a moment the mentor merely stared. "Honoring your family is important, but you cannot not shrink your desires to fit someone else's life," the mentor said, her voice firm yet encouraging. "You must establish your own expectations if you wish to succeed. What does your success look like?" The words tugged at Sarah, pushing her to confront her inner conflict. What did success even mean for her? Was it simply a title, a paycheck, or something deeper, something that could finally provide her a sense of self outside her familial role? "I want to influence, to lead in ways that reflect both my ambitions and the values I hold dear," she said, surprising herself with the assurance in her tone. "But stepping into that feels like leaving them behind." The mentor leaned in, a knowing smile beginning to form. "If they truly love you, they will celebrate your success as it unfolds. Your journey can become their inspiration, not just a departure." As the meeting progressed, Sarah found herself sailing into a realm of ideas she hadn't dared to entertain before. But as energized as she felt, a shadow of doubt still loomed. By the time she stepped outside, the thrill of potential collided with her lingering fears. Would they truly be able to celebrate her accomplishments? Or would her aspirations create new rifts? She texted Richard, seeking his reassurance, but the reply wasn't what she expected. "We've talked about you growing. Don't think too much about us." A knot tightened in her stomach. Did they think she needed to ignore their feelings? As she made her way home, the reality of facing her family consumed her thoughts. This wasn't merely a matter of explaining her intentions. It had transformed into a confrontation with their intertwined identities. What if their growth depended on this moment too? Stepping through the door, Sarah could sense the palpable tension in the air, underpinning the simple act of sharing a meal together. This wasn't just about what she wanted. It was unraveling the complexities of what they all desired. As they sat around the dinner table, the curve of uncertainty returned. Would they be receptive to her new path? Or was she about to breach uncharted territory that might leave scars on their relationship? With each bite, she felt both poised and precarious, ready to confront the truth that could either fortify their bonds or unravel everything they had built together. What revelations awaited them at the dinner table? And would Sarah's dreams become a source of unity or conflict? The clinking of silverware echoed against the backdrop of an increasingly charged atmosphere. Sarah sat across from her family, her hands wrapped tightly around her knife and fork, steadying herself for the conversation her heart insisted she initiate. The flickering candlelight reflected the uncertainty swirling, within her a dance of self-doubt and anticipatory hope. Her mother's gaze hopped nervously from Sarah's face to her father's stoic expression. He had always worn his expectations like a badge, and she felt the weight pressing against her chest. Her brother, Richard, remained preoccupied with his phone, a barrier between his world and the gravity of the moment. "Can we talk about what's been on my mind?" she ventured, her voice lighter than she felt. The restaurant buzzed quietly around them, becoming dim background noise to her inner tremors. "Sure, honey," her father replied, although the slight furrow in his brow suggested he sensed the seriousness behind her tone. "What's on your mind?" "I want to share something about my plans," Sarah began, gathering her courage with palpable effort. "I've decided to pursue an opportunity that could change my career path. It means a lot of change for me." "Is this about that program you mentioned?" Lila interjected, her eyes flashing with recognition but also concern. With every word, a small part of Sarah released its grip on her trepidation, like shedding old skin. "Yes. It's more than just a program, it's about stepping into a role where I can influence and lead. I believe it's possible for me, but I'm afraid of how you'll react." Her voice trembled, betraying the confidence she had claimed earlier. The silence that followed was heavy, weighted with unspoken fears and the remnants of unfinished family conversations. It does sound like a big step, but why do you think it's necessary? Richard asked, finally looking up. His tone was neutral yet probing, a brother's natural inclination to protect and question. Because I need to grow beyond what's expected of me, she replied, surprise shooting through her at her own assertiveness. I love you all, and I understand the sacrifices you've made for me, but I can't let that tether me down. My success could inspire us, not divide us. Her father's mouth tightened, a clear sign he was grappling with this new information. Did he understand the stakes? Would he be able to let go of his expectations for her to soar? Sarah, we've always wanted what's best for you, he started guardedly. But you have to understand, this isn't just about you. We've built a life together, and every choice affects us all. I know. She interrupted, surprise rippling through the table. But if I don't take this chance, I'll always wonder, I'll always feel like I'm just fading into the background of your lives. Stunned silence replaced her defiance. A palpable realization that this wasn't merely a discussion, this was her claiming her own narrative. The fact that her words might fracture bonds made her pulse quicken, but retreating to safety felt equally unacceptable. Is this what you really want? Lila asked softly, her voice a gentle probing. It is, and I need your support, Sarah admitted, vulnerability piercing through her bravado. Seeing her family sit before her so intertwined yet emotionally distant made her realize their interdependency was shifting. I want to carve out a path that doesn't just define me by who you want me to be but by who I can be. The truth hung between them like gauze, fragile yet binding. Would they take the leap of faith with her? Her father shifted in his seat, processing her words. We've always had you at heart, but it's hard to let go of our perceptions of keeping you in our grasp. Sarah felt a flicker of empathy alongside her own anxiety. Did they fear losing her? Would her aspirations shadow the family structure? Richard sighed, breaking the tense silence. Maybe we all need to adapt, not just you. The conversation ambled, vacillating between trepidation and reluctant understanding. They shared stories of their dreams, desires that had been pushed aside for the sake of family, and slowly, Sarah sensed that her ambitions might serve as a catalyst, a sort of bomb for collective yearning to end this charged moment of discovery. She felt hope but also uncertainty linger behind every word they shared. As the meal wound down, the path to a new future felt thrilling yet precarious. Would they truly accept her embrace of independence? Or would shifting dynamics lead to an uncharted stalemate? The questions hung in the air, thick with possibility. As she left the table, Sarah realized she was on the brink of something profound. Each decision would test not only her own resolve but the bonds she held dear. In confronting her family's response, she realized the real challenge lay ahead. What if their willingness to adapt would not only shape her future, but also redefine their relationships forever? Would this revelation forge a new path, or would she be forced to abandon a part of herself to maintain the old order? The aftermath of their dinner conversation settled over Sarah like a fog. She walked aimlessly through the streets, the cool night air bracing against her cheeks, an anchor to ground her thoughts that felt like they might scatter in all directions. The night's discussion replayed in her mind, a cacophony of fears and courage wrestling for dominance. She couldn't shake the weight of her family's expectations, yet each step seemed to carve out more clarity in her purpose. She reflected on Richard's unexpected support. It reminded her that change often starts small, radiating outward from the familiar. If her family could embrace the idea of adaptation, then maybe she wouldn't shatter the core of their bonds, but build something new. Arriving at her tiny apartment, Sarah took a moment to breathe. The walls were draped in the familiar chaos of half-finished projects. Ambitions hung like clothes on aligned parts of her she had yet to claim. This was her space, a sanctuary where she could finally begin untangling the disparate threads of her life. Sitting at her cluttered desk, she opened her laptop and scrolled through the program details again. Each course listed felt like an open door leading to untold possibilities. The thought of mentoring, of inspiring those who might follow a similar path, sent sparks of excitement shooting through her. This was bigger than her fear. This was a leap into a realm she had only peered into from the edges. But uncertainty tangled in with the excitement. The conversations with her parents had unveiled deeper layers of fear. What if her attempt at independence was met with resistance? What if their history together became an anchor she could no longer navigate around? As she pondered these questions, she felt an urge to write, to untangle her thoughts onto the page. Not in the confines of a timid journal entry, but as if she were drafting a manifesto of her new self. The glow from her screen illuminated her determination. What would she say if she were speaking to her future self? She typed fervently, "I am more than the roles assigned to me. I choose to chase my passions, unapologetically. My dreams don't diminish others. They amplify our family's legacy." The words flowed like water, carving a new pathway in her mind, solidifying her intentions. The thrill of self-discovery melded with the reality of her familial relationships, and a plan began to take shape. She needed to gather her thoughts not just for herself, but for the conversations that lay ahead. This new chapter required her to chart a path through treacherous waters, one of vulnerability, strength, assertiveness, and empathy. The next day, as she prepared for her shift at the cafe where she worked, Sarah resolved to make each interaction count. Every table she served would become an opportunity to practice the lines she envisioned delivering in her family meetings. She watched the vibrating dynamics of her customers, their lives intertwining over steaming cups of coffee. Laughter echoed in her ears, each moment a reminder that connection could be the fuel for change. But there were still hurdles to leap. The stakes felt higher than simply pursuing a new job. They surged into the realm of redefining her identity. At the end of her shift, a familiar face arrived, one that prompted a visceral reaction deep in her chest. Mark, the district manager of the restaurant, carried an air of authority that was immediately commanding. He had always been one to cut through pretense with a sharp gaze, and Sarah felt the pressure heightened. It was a chance meeting that could either instigate her rise or send her tumbling back to the margins of invisibility. The clock's ticking began to echo louder in her ears. What would she say if he asked about her dreams? What if he presented an unexpected opportunity, or worse, a fork in the road demanding a quick decision? "Mark," she said tentatively, her heart galloping as she approached him. Would this moment test her resolve or affirm her newfound determination? The weight of her ambitions rode with her, and as she approached, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything hinged on this encounter. "Sarah," he began, his tone revealing nothing. "We need to talk." And just like that, everything she had prepared for, her resolve to embrace change and step into the unknown, collided with the impending uncertainty of what was to come. The moment of truth had arrived, and she felt the world holding its breath. As the words hung in the air, Sarah's heart raced. Mark's expression was serious, but beneath that veneer lay a flicker of something softer. Was it recognition? It was time to confront everything she had been wrestling with, and she squared her shoulders, preparing herself for the unexpected. "Sarah, we've noticed your exceptional performance lately," he said, a spark of approval lighting his tone. "With your hard work and that remarkable incident at the gala, we're considering a promotional position for you." The weight of those words settled into her core, a rush of exhilaration and anxious uncertainty mingling within. Could this be the catalyst she needed to truly embark on her journey? The promotion was not just an elevation in her career. It represented an affirmation of her worth, one she had long struggled against. With a deep breath, she steadied herself for what came next. "Thank you, Mark. I appreciate your faith in me. But I need to ask a question. What does this promotion entail?" As she spoke, her voice was strong. He was not just offering an opportunity. She was prepared to navigate the expectations that came with it. Mark leaned forward, elucidating the responsibilities, the leadership expected, and the challenges that lay ahead. "It's going to pull you into a different sphere, Sarah, one that's fast-paced and demanding. Are you ready for that?" The dichotomy of excitement and fear surged through her. This opportunity could pave the way for her ambitions and support her family's aspirations. But the weight of success also required reevaluation of her existing commitments. Could she truly balance her new role with her duties at home? "I'm interested," she said, conviction rising in her chest. "But I want to do this my way." My family matters to me, and I need to carve out space where I can grow without losing touch with them. Mark nodded thoughtfully. That's a wise way to approach it, Sarah. Being rooted often provides the strongest foundation for growth. His response resonated deeply, echoing the realization she had come to during her conversations with Richard and Lila. As they finalized details, her authenticity shone through. Every exchange ignited her sense of purpose, fueling her confidence like never before. The promotion represented achievement, yes, but it was also a chance to manifest independence, to weave her ambitions into the fabric of who she was: a supportive sister, a mentor, a leader on her own terms. Later that evening, as she stepped into her modest apartment, Sarah felt electric with possibility. She had navigated the complexities of ambition and familial responsibility all within a single day. Her pulse raced as she barely glanced at the stack of homework on the table that yesterday felt like insurmountable. Today, however, it just seemed like another step in the journey. With soft determination, she settled in beside Richard, who was busily hammering out his college applications. "Hey, got good news," she started, letting excitement flow through her words. "I've been promoted at work. I'll be shifting into a leadership role." Richard's gaze flickered to her, surprise mixing with pride. "That's amazing, Sarah. What does it mean?" "It means I can influence change not only for myself but for us too," she replied, a bright smile stretching across her face. "And I want you to understand, I will always be here for you both, no matter how busy I get. This is about building our shared future, not just mine." Sarah saw the apprehension float away from Richard's face, replaced by a slowly growing admiration. Encouraged, she pressed on to articulate her vision: how she planned to balance her new responsibilities while making time for their needs. Each word articulated brought relief, demonstrated growth as they discussed responsibilities and dreams. The growing bond between them rekindled as lights flickering through their almost discarded ambitions brightened. Lila joined them, sleepily questioning the cacophony of excitement. "Did you say you got a promotion?" she exclaimed, her eyes wide and sparkling. "Yes, we're going to build a future together, Lila," Sarah responded, pride infusing her voice. "And guess what? I'll have resources to help you on your next steps so you won't feel left behind." Seeing their pure joy mingled with familial support felt surreal. In this private victory, she realized that vulnerability formed stronger connections than she had ever imagined. Each moment of openness eroded the remaining fears. She was no longer drifting through life but carving her path with full intent together with Richard and Lila, rather than apart. Weeks flew by as Sarah settled into her new role while supporting her family. She faced challenges deftly, applying skills acquired from years of balancing work and home. Each success spurred her on, and every conversation with Richard and Lila fortified their shared journey of growth. With every small triumph, leading a meeting, nurturing relationships with new mentors, and ensuring her siblings felt valued, Sarah conquered self-doubt. She was finally more than just the title of waitress. She embodied resilience, ambition, and the irreplaceable connection of family. On the final night of the quarter, an elegant gala awaited her at a prominent venue, her first formal acknowledgement of her progress. As she stood on the revolving stage, a dress microphone poised in her hand, she spoke to the audience, constructs of her journey spilling forth. "I want to thank everyone who has supported me, especially my family, who taught me the power of love amidst ambition. My journey won't redefine my roots but rather uplift everything we've built together." As the applause rang out, Sarah felt truly recognized. This hard-earned moment forged an incredible realization. She could indeed conquer her fears and earn accolades without leaving her family behind. Each award, every achievement, became intertwined with their story. The triumph of one was the triumph of all. And in that gala light, enveloped by the air of hopeful aspirations, she embraced her growth confident, fulfilled, and ready for whatever challenges the future may hold. This was her moment. Now is the time for you to share in this journey of growth and personal overcoming. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support us in continuing to bring you these impactful narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this ending. We want to hear from true fans of personal overcoming stories. And finally, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Every second counts, don't wait. Your support means the world to us.